Hey guys, this is Daniel Dessinger again with searchmatters.com, and today we're going to take a look at the mobile version of a website I came across on Twitter today, also known as X, and it was mentioned in the context of a site in its niche that is doing really well lately in search. So, because most people who have websites and local businesses care about getting traffic to their website, I wanted to take a look at a site that is doing well and see what it looks like for the user itself. So, taking a quick look, I'm at the home page. There's a few things that I notice immediately. One, I don't see a logo. So there's no logo visible. Now, I do see that there's a subscribe button at the top and an X to X that out. So we're going to find out in just a second. If I X out the subscribe button at the top bar, perhaps it shows me the main navigation and logo. But for now, I don't see anything at the top. I also notice it does have an advertisement in the bottom. I can X that out so now I can see a little bit more of the page. And the thing I really wanted to call your attention to is the font of the headlines. Now, this is unusual. It's not something I would normally point out because typically the only issue I would ever have as a user, I'm not even speaking critically as somebody who deals with digital marketing, but just as a user, a person who uses my phone to search the web, the only complaint I normally would have about a site's headlines or font would be that the font is too large or too small. And if it's too large, then the words get cut off as they go across the screen. The word is actually longer than the space. And or it might just, the title of an article might be so long that with a large font, it takes up half or more of the screen because the font's too large, or if the font's too small. Now, in this case, the font is too small for me, but also it's really the type of font that matters here. It is the combination of factors. We have a small font for the headline. It is in all caps in a boxy kind of font, and it's overlapping the images, and it's actually really hard for me to read. So I have to put a lot of mental energy and focus. I have to hold the phone a little bit further away from my face and really focus on the words in order to get the gist. And here's the problem. Unless I know and love this brand already for some reason, if I'm a first-time visitor, I don't have a motivating reason to stay and work hard to figure out what's on this site. I haven't been given a motive to care. And if I don't care, I'm not going to invest my energy working hard for something I don't know has a payoff. So immediately I'm looking at this, and my first impression of this website, if nobody had told me anything about it, I would say this site wasn't done well. It's not my cup of tea. Let me put it that way. Now, the content may be amazing. I would assume that there's some pretty good content on here since it's doing well in search traffic. But I can't tell what the branding is. Now I'm going to hit the X to end the subscribe. Now I see the logo. Okay. And I do have a navigation, and I can choose by category. I'm going to scroll down. The imagery is decent enough. It's good enough. And here's an interesting thing. So why are the top 3 articles, why is the title overlapping the image? And then I get to the 4th, it's underneath the image. Now, because I've worked with WordPress for more than a decade, feels like 15, I think it's been over 15 years now, since I've worked basically since 2006 with WordPress. I know that the reason why it's laid out this way is because they have a certain setup in their layout where there's a different layout for the top 3, and then they get into a featured post below it. And that's what the Archer is. That's a featured post because you have the author's name, a date, and you have a little little snippet there. You have another featured post. And so basically we've gone from like a top 3, almost like a carousel type feature for the layout, even though it doesn't rotate. We have a top 3, and then we get into the general post layout. And a couple things I noticed is, one, it's still hard for me to read, though it's a little bit easier to read with the titles over white background, but also they are bumped right up against the image. There's not any visual space between the image and the title, and that's really big for me. It feels crowded, it feels overcrowded, and already I'm dealing with this small all caps title. All these things make it just harder to focus, harder to concentrate, harder to care. I'm going to scroll down. I have an ad. I have more articles. Another ad. More articles. Another ad. Another ad, which is fine. I don't have a problem with the ads. I'm just pointing out what I'm seeing. I saw the planet, so it says, want to visit an exoplanet. Make sure you check out this travel calculation. Okay. People who watched others dislike eating vegetables. What? People who watched others dislike eating vegetables ended up hating vegetables too. That's an awkward title. New bipartisan bill aims to strengthen UAP reporting from civilian pilots and aviation personnel. So right now I'm getting some really different topics on this homepage. I mean, about people who watch critics of vegetables, exoplanets, bipartisan bills, Hubble Space Telescope, new blue light LED, ancient mud bricks. So right now I'm guessing that what they've essentially done, if I just, as a first time visitor, I've never been to this site before, my take on this site is they've, just like any other thing, if I went to Apple News or if I joined different news related apps, they want to know what your interests are. Even Twitter will ask for some interest, and you click some interest and it starts to feed you topics from those interests. And this site seems to have cherry picked some of perhaps the most popular topics people pick when they use those apps, and then it's feeding those into the site. So they're not all thematic. It's not all one topic, but they seem to be, I would guess, categories that resonate with, they're like maybe very compelling categories for a large set of people. I'm going to keep scrolling down and see what I get to at the bottom, if I do, or does it go to infinite? Oh, okay. So we passed the main post area here, or we were, and it's still going. So it looks like they've activated what they call infinite scroll. An infinite scroll, once you get towards the bottom of the page, it doesn't allow you to see the footer. It actually it populates more posts. So it'd be like page 2 auto-populates. You see that in Google a lot now. It used to be Google, you'd have like 10 results. You'd have to click the arrow or page 2 to see another 10 results, but now they actually will auto-populate 10 more results as you scroll down. So it looks like this is what's happening, except if I scrolled fast enough, I got to a place where it showed me, so there's the footer. Oh, okay. So the site has a footer and it has other sections of the homepage. I just can never see them. This, I think, is an oversight. Somebody isn't paying attention because, well, they have conflicting ideals here. On the one hand, you want a really nice looking layout. So when it was designed, they picked a layout that had a pretty cool looking, or what they thought was a pretty cool looking section below the main articles list. But then somebody made a decision, well, I want to put the articles list on infinite scroll, which essentially makes the bottom of the page invisible. You basically never get there unless you scroll all the way back to the very first article that was ever published. Then it doesn't have anything more to populate and would probably let you see what's down below. So it kind of defeats the purpose to have anything below an infinite scroll. Now the footer is going to be there because most websites have a universal footer. It's there on every single page, looks the same. But I did notice there was a smaller post section with smaller thumbnails in a centered column. So there was a different layout that was intended to go below this list, but with infinite scroll activated, they're not visible. So that's all I can see on the homepage. I'm going to take a quick look at podcasts to see if they're actually offering podcasts. So here we have a broken thumbnail as the first. I'm going to refresh just in case for some reason it didn't load. No, so as a first-time visitor, if I hit the page on podcasts and I'm getting a broken thumbnail, it's affecting my perception of the brand. You know, it's, oh, this either isn't professional or they haven't been updating it very often. Okay, I'm going to scroll down. They have Rebelliously Curious, Micah Hanks, Ask Dr. Chance. And then there is the footer that we couldn't quite get to because of the infinite scroll of articles. Real quick, I'm going to take another look at About and just see how they describe themselves. Rebelliously curious in exploring frontier science and innovative technology. Okay, so that's their hook, or that's their focus. We have 5 different contributors, it looks like. I can't really read. Like I can pinch to zoom in, And now I can see that they have an editor-in-chief, an executive director, a content director, a science writer, and a podcast host, which probably means they're subbing out the writing to a lot of independents. And then they're fact-checking or quality-checking themselves. Mission, transparency, direction. Wait, our mission and then mission statement. Those don't make sense to go together. Then you have some contributors down here. Okay. All right, so they're just generating a lot of content based on other parts of the web. Let's just click on defense and see. So I'm gonna click on an article because I wanna get a sense of their layout real quick. So the image then goes full screen from edge to edge for mobile. The title is still overlapping the image. We get into the post. Organized crime is leveraging artificial intelligence and cryptocurrencies. Some pretty thick text, small font. Still hard. It's actually harder for me to read the titles than it is the paragraph text, which is unusual. It's usually the opposite. But it's just standard font size and style for the paragraph, and the titles themselves are a little awkward visually. And I'm just scrolling down to see, are we at still, I don't even know if we're in the same article. I think we may have infinitely scrolled into another. Oh, now this was what I saw on the homepage, related posts, or at least something similar to that. So they do have a related post section. And overall, I mean, I don't know whether the content quality is there, but it must be pretty decent if they're going to be doing well in search, although that's kind of an overgeneralized assumption, but I'm going to make that assumption anyway. The things that concern me the most here is that if once I show up, I'm tapping back on the homepage, is that I'm immediately, so I do see the logo here. I guess I have waited too long and popped up a subscribe over a white screen, which I would probably consider changing the style of that subscribe even. And like, this is fine as far as logo and the hamburger menu here. Those are fine. I don't have any issue with those. It's just one immediately below. There's not much space between the logo and the first image. And then it's hard to read the titles, the font, and overlapping the colors. There's not enough contrast at times, and literally just the letters are too small for me. I'm scrolling down, and I'd like more space between image and titles for this section. And I'm Xing out the ad. I mean, if I could read everything clearly, here's basically what I'll say. I know it sounds critical at first when I'm pointing out flaws, but here's what I would say. If they want my attention, make the font size larger, put white space between the titles and the images. Don't overlap titles over images so that I can read them clearly. And then if I can get a really clear, easy, it doesn't cost me any extra effort to tell what it's about, I very possibly will find an article that's compelling in the first few scrolls. This stuff is interesting. I could find something that I want to read about. However, because of the size of the fonts, because of the headlines, I'm irritated. I'm actually irritated by how much work I have to put in to read it. So I'm just gonna bail. So it may be a great site. I'm not saying it's not. I'm saying that they're missing an opportunity to keep more people like me invested in the content by making the font size larger and the title fonts different style that are a little bit wider, more spaced apart, easier to read, not overlapping and adding white space. Those are my main things, and literally they could have quadrupled to 10x'd my time on site if those things were addressed. So that's just a quick insight into user experience for the debrief.org. If you have any questions or comments, leave them below. Let me know what you think. If you have any additional questions or want to run a scenario by me, I'd be happy to help.